This is review number 6, writing linear equations. Number 1 says to graph 3x plus y equals -6. To graph, I'm going to go ahead and solve for y. So using don't call me after midnight, I don't need to distribute, I don't need to combine or move. I do need to add or subtract. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And I'm left with y equals -3x minus 6. Here my slope is -3. And my y-intercept is -6. So I'm going to write that as 0, -6. I'm going to first put my point at -6. And then I'm going to use the slope of -3 to graph. So to go up, I'm going to go up 3, back 1. And draw my line, make sure that it goes all the way through each point. And to write this in slope-intercept form, remember that is y equals mx plus b. So that'll be y equals -3x minus 6. Number 2, graph y minus 10 equals -4 times x plus 1. This is in point slope form, and so it is actually giving me a point and a slope. I know that the equation is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, so I know my slope is actually -4. And from this, I don't know my x-intercept yet, but I will go ahead and graph that point. So if I pull the point, my x1 and my y1, okay, and I'm taking the opposite. So the opposite of +1 is -1. The opposite of -10 is +10. So that is the point that I'm graphing, -1, 10. And then I'm using a slope of -4 to plot my points. So -4 is, I'm going to go down 4 over 1. Down 4 over 1. And don't forget to draw your line through. Looking here, I now can determine my y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis, which is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is at 6. So 0, 6. And I can write my equation in slope-intercept form. So y equals -4x plus 6. Number 3, graph 2x minus 3y equals -9. So I could do this two ways. We could graph using the intercepts, but I'm going to go ahead and solve for y and go ahead and get it in slope-intercept form because that's what I have to have. I don't need to distribute, combine like terms, or move variables, but I do need to subtract 2x from both sides. And I'm left with -3y equals -2x minus 9. The last thing to do is divide by -3 and make sure that you divide everything by -3. And so my equation is y equals 2/3 x plus 3. So from that, I know that my slope is 2/3 and that my y-intercept is going to be at 3. So I'm going to say 0, 3. So I'm going to plot that point of 0, 3, and then I'm going to use my slope of 2/3 to graph. So I'm going to rise 2 and run 3. To go backwards, I'm going to go down 2, back 3. And there's my line. Number 4, a horizontal line that passes through -5, 4. Well, I know that whenever I have a horizontal line, that's going to be hoi. So I know I'm going to have a 0 slope, and my equation is going to be y equals whatever my y value is. 4. So I'm putting a point at -5, 4, and then I'm going to draw a horizontal line through. Number 5, a line that passes through -5, 4 and has an undefined slope. Well, undefined slope tells me that I'm dealing with a vux, so that means I'm going to have a vertical line. And my equation is going to be x equal whatever my x value is, so -5. So I'm going to go ahead and plot that point, -5, 4, but this time I'm putting a vertical line through. Think about Slope Dude when he fell off the cliff and he said the worst cuss word in Algebra 1, undefined. Number 6, using the graph shown, answer the following. So the first thing I'm going to get is my slope. I'm going to use these 2 points. So I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, and then I run forward 2. So my slope is 3/2. My y-intercept, remember that's where it crosses the y-axis, is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is at -6. Remember that your 0 matches up with your x-intercept. So my x-intercept is over there at 4, so my 0 is 4. And to go ahead and write my equation, remember we need the slope and the y-intercept. So it's y equals 3/2 x minus 6. Number 7, using the graph, answer the following questions as well. So same thing as number 6, except number 7 didn't put the points nice and pretty for us, but we're still doing the same thing. To get my slope, I'm going to go ahead and use the y-intercept and the x-intercept. So I go down 2, so -2, right 3. So -2/3. Which is true because if I was thinking back to the Slope Dude, I'm going downhill. My y-intercept is at 0, 2. And remember that your 0 goes with your x-intercept. So my 0 is going to be at 3. The last thing that I'm writing is my equation. So I'm putting my slope and my y-intercept. So y equals -2/3 x plus 2. Number 8, so use the given information, write the equation of each line. So number 8 is where I would use stat edit. So I'm going to make my XY chart. I would plug those into stat edit. Then I would do stat, arrow over to calc, and hit number 4. And I would get that my slope is 1/3 and that my y-intercept is 0. So to write this as an equation, I would say y equals 1/3 x, and I don't need to put the plus 0, so I'm just going to leave it. Number 9 tells me that I have an x-intercept of 2 and a y-intercept of -3. So this gave me 2 points. So an x-intercept of 2 means 2, 0. And the y-intercept of -3 means 0, -3. So that gave me 2 points. I'm making my XY chart to keep everything organized. And I'm also typing those into stat edit. And you should get that your equation is y equals 3/2 x minus 3. Number 10, it gives me a slope of -3 and it passes through a point. So here I have a slope and a point. So I'm going to put this in point slope form. I'm going to go ahead and label that my slope is my m, and this is my x1 and my y1. So point slope form is y minus y1 equals my slope times x minus x1. So I'm just going to plug it in. Okay, y minus y1, which is 7, equals my slope, so -3 times x minus x1, so 4. So y minus 7 equals -3 times x minus 4. And again, that is point slope form. 11, slope of -6 and a y-intercept of 5. So here I have my slope and my y-intercept, which is my b. So I can go ahead and put these in slope-intercept. So y equals -6x plus 5. And again, I use slope-intercept, so y equals mx plus b. 12 says a line that passes through the point 9, -6 and has a slope of 0. Remember, when I have a 0 slope, that's hoi of x hoi. So my equation is going to be y equals whatever my y value is. So y equals -6. Okay, on a graph, my graph would look like this, a horizontal line at y equals -6. 13 says a vertical line that passes through the point -3, 1. Well, if I have a vertical line, I know that's vux. Okay, my slope is undefined, and my equation is x equals whatever my x value is. So x equals -3. 14, a slope of -5. I'm going to label slope with M. And it passes through the point 1, -2. Write it in point slope form first and then convert it. So that's my x1 and my y1. So to start off, I'm going to say y minus y1. So if y1 is -2, a negative minus a negative is a positive. Sorry, when I'm subtracting a negative, it's a positive. And x minus x1. Okay, that is point slope, and now I'm going to convert to slope-intercept. So using don't call me after midnight, I do have to distribute because I see those parentheses. So -5x plus 5, and rewrite the left side. I don't need to combine or move, but I do need to add or subtract. So I'm going to subtract 2, and I'm left with y equals -5x plus 3. And that is actually now in slope-intercept form. 15, our means December paycheck amount can be found by using the following function. So y equals 7.25x plus 80 for x hours. Her paycheck includes a certain price per hour and a holiday bonus. What is the rate of change of her paycheck amount in dollars with respect to x hours that she worked in December? So here's my function. So 7.25x. Okay, so I think of that as she makes $7.25 an hour plus $80, and that $80 is probably that bonus that she got. So whenever we're talking about in context, we're talking about y per x. So I know that the y is the amount of money that she makes, or her pay, and that's per hour that she works. So y per x, because x was the hours. 16 says write the equation in slope-intercept form. Sorry, point slope form that represents the table below. So looking at the table, I can choose any point. I'm going to choose the first one. Remember that f of x is another way to write y. And now I just need to find the slope. So to find the slope, I would type these into stat edit. And hopefully you would get that your slope is equal to 4. So to write my equation, I'll say y minus y1 equals my slope times x minus x1. So y minus y1, well, I'm going to use 3, equals my slope times x minus x1, which was 1. 17, Sue adds charms to a charm bracelet. The table shows how the weight of the bracelet changes each time she adds a charm. So here I'm given a table. Anytime I'm given a table, I'm going to type that into stat edit. Okay, it says what is the rate of change? Remember, rate of change is just another word for slope. So when you type that into stat edit, you should get that your slope is 0.45. And what does the rate of change represent? Or remember, we're going to say y per x. So my y talks about weight in ounces. So I'm going to say it's ounces per charm. Y per x, ounces per charm, and I read that straight from the chart. 18. It says match the different equations to their proper form. All choices will not be used, okay? We're not going to use all of them. Remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So my x and y are on the same side. Point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And you can find all of these on your formula chart. Slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b. So we're going to be matching. So looking at A, I have x and y on the same side and it equals 40. So I'm going to say that's standard form. B, x minus 7 equals 3/2 times y minus 2. Well, I can see that it kind of wants to be point slope form, but I have to have a y here and an x here. So that's going to be nothing. C, y equals 4/5 x plus 15. Well, here I can clearly see my slope and my point. So that's going to be slope-intercept. D, y minus 10 equals 4 times x plus 1. I have my y1, my x1, and I have my slope. So that's going to be point slope form. E, y equals 2x minus 10. Well, I can see my slope and my intercept. So that's slope-intercept form. F, I have y plus 3 equals 1/3 times x minus 6. I have my y1, my x1, and my slope. So that's point slope form. And x plus y equals 3. Well, I have x and y on the same side, and it equals 3. So that is standard form. You should not have used B for any of those. Convert the following questions into slope-intercept form. Once complete, also identify your slope and your intercept, your M and B. So when solving here, I'm using Don't Call Me After Midnight. I went ahead and wrote it for everything, so I don't have to stop once I get in the groove of solving. So 19, I am not distributing, combining, or moving, but I will add or subtract. Okay, I'm solving for y, so I'm going to add 3x to the other side. And I'm left with 2y equals 3x minus 8. The last thing that I'm going to do is divide by 2 and make sure that everything is divided by 2, and I get my equation to be y equals 3/2 x minus 4. Well, now that I solved, I know that my slope is 3/2 and my b is -4, my intercept. 20, I don't need to distribute, combine, or move variables. Okay, but I am trying to solve for that y, so I'm going to subtract 4x on both sides. And I get 2y equals -4x minus 10. My last step will be divide by 2. Make sure everything is divided by 2. And I get my equation to be y equals negative. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, so -2x minus 5. Here my slope is -2, and my b, my y-intercept, is -5. 21, so it gave it to me in point slope form, whereas the other ones gave them to me in standard form. So I have to do a little extra work, starting with distributing, So I'm distributing 1/3 on the inside. And I'm left with y plus 3 equals 1/3 x, and then 1/3 times 6 is 2, so minus 2. I don't need to combine now, move, but I do need to subtract 3. And I get y equals 1/3 x minus 5. Here my slope is 1/3, and my y-intercept is -5. Last one, 22, I will start with distributing. So I'm going to distribute 4/5. And I'm left with y plus 13 equals 4/5 x plus 20, I think that is. So the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and subtract 13 because I don't need to combine, move, but I do need to subtract. And I'm left with y equals 4/5 x plus 7. Where my slope is 4/5 and my intercept is 7. Okay, last few questions. Convert the following equations into standard form. Remember that standard form is ax plus by equals c, where a is positive and it's a whole number. So it's already in slope-intercept form, so I'm going to start by subtracting 8/3 x to the other side. So I have negative 8/3 x plus y equals -2. So I have my x and y on the same side, but now I need to go ahead and make sure that that first number is a whole number. So I'm going to multiply it by the denominator, and then I have that negative there, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply it by another negative because a negative times a negative is a positive. So multiply or distribute that -3 to everything on the inside. And so I'm left with 8x minus 3y equals 6. Okay, this is notes 6-3 if you're still a little confused. Okay, 24. I'm going to first convert it to slope-intercept, and then we'll go ahead and convert. So I'm going to multiply it by -2/5. I'm going to add 8 to the other side. I'm left with y equals -2/5 x plus 10. Now I'm going to move my x over. So I'm going to add 2/5 x to both sides. And what I get is 2/5 x plus y equals 10. And the last thing that I'm going to do is get rid of that fraction. So I'm going to multiply everything by my denominator, which is a 5. Make sure that you multiply everything by it. And I'm left with 2x plus 5y equals 50. Which of the following two functions has a greater value when x equals 5? Justify your answer. So the first one is f of x. So I'm going to plug in f of 5 and solve that. So -20 times 5 is -100. So f of 5 equals 50. Okay, now I'm going to look at the graph, and so I'm looking whenever x is 5. which is x is 5 right there. So my y value is 35. So I would say that f of 5 is greater than g of 5 because 50 is greater than 35. That's my answer, and that's how I justify it. Shauna and her family have subscribed to a bundled home phone and internet service. The company uses the function f of x equals 50 plus 19.5 times x to determine the total charges for x months. Complete each of the following statements based on this situation. So the total charge increases by blank each month. Well, each month tells me that I'm going to be dealing with my variable. So I know that it's going to increase $19.50 each month. At the end of 24 months, the family will have been charged a total of, so you could type this into Y1 and then go to your second table. Or if you do it by hand, you would say f of 24 equals 50 plus 19.5 times 24. And you should get $468. And at the end of blank months, the family will have been charged $206. Okay, 206 is a y value. It's a total cost. So if you were looking in your calculator at the table, you would look to see whenever your y equals 206, and you should get that your x value was 8. Last one, describe the range of the following function. Remember, range is your y value, and that's floor to ceiling. Okay, so my range is here. Nothing goes below 0. So I'm going to say y is greater than or equal to 0. I have the arrows going up, so it's never going to stop on the way up. This is the end of review 6. If you need to, make sure that you rewind and pause it so that you can make sure that you get all of this information.